Okay, we're probably back live here. This is James White from Critical Disclosure. As you can see, I'm with Mark and Terri Steman. We had some technical difficulties, so we decided to punt and go another route, and that's what we're doing here. We're back on the line here. We've still got a good 40 minutes to do this broadcast. Mark and Terri, sorry to get you on so late, but it's good to have you back again, as I was just stating before all these interruptions. Thanks so very much for your kind words before the break there. I, like you, do this because I care about humanity and I care about children and parents that suffer. I know you do too. So, like I said, my hat's off to you, to the work that you've done. So I know we want to get right down to the documentation. If we can, let's set it up a little bit here. I know I have the documents ready to go. If you want to set up what documents we're about to see, and just let the folks know what direction we're going to be going in today in the next 30 to 40 minutes. Mark and Terri Steman, over to you.
Yeah, well, thank you for your patience and the patience of your audience, Jim. We are experiencing cyber attacks in this country. It's been reported in the news lately, and so we can't dismiss any of the possibility with that. But right now, things are looking pretty good. So we're going to try to disclose as much as we can because of your kindness on your program, we've been able to bring forward to the American people some of the details of what's happening within our system. And we want to continue that today. So to kind of reset the stage and to make the best use of our time, we left off in our storyline after our children were taken. They were kidnapped under the color of law. There was a concerted conspiracy, a pre-planned event to take our children, and which has triggered a whole slew of other things. But what we discovered with the evidence, and it will all point to this as we continue to bring this forward, is we talk about the corruption, and we have evidence of an infiltration within the system. And being that this is a national model for the entire country, and as you have reported faithfully, Jim, over the many months, these things happening to so many other American families like a script. And so we can talk about corruption, but when you see it on such a broad scale, then it kind of rises to the level of a seditious operation. And because it's aligned with the fraud, and you've talked about the fraud, and we see the fraud in other areas, right now the big issue is the vote and election fraud. But what we're going to bring forth and show the American people is the fraud happening with the theft of people's children, including our own, so that they can become aware and then hopefully act, because no one in our system government is apparently working on our behalf or the behalf of other American families and children. I was watching your broadcast and the Critical Disclosure show yesterday when you had Sarah call in from Arizona, I think it was, where she sent a lot of her evidence in and she got it sent back. I mean, this is not a system that is working on behalf of the American people. And in our case, we are still ignored to this day, even after what we brought forth thus far. So along the spirit of continued disclosure, we believe the truth will set us free. We're going to continue to do that. And for anyone who thinks that they're going to stop this, you're not. Okay, we have enough securities in place where this information is going to get out. We're going to continue to bring it out, and we want our children returned. We want other American families who have had their children taken under the color of law without the charge or conviction of a crime to be promptly returned. This is not American what is going on. It's an outrage, it's a travesty, and we're going to continue to speak out and encourage other people to continue to speak out, to put the pieces of evidence together. So, Jim, we want to thank you again, and we want to get right into it. I want to show with the first slide that when the court ordered our daughter Amy to be taken to the hospital for her alleged condition, she was not taken immediately to the hospital. And there are procedures under the state of Kentucky law that they're required to follow, where a judge will order a child to be transported for committing either to jail or for treatment at a medical facility. And so this did not happen in our case. The judge basically let two people who weren't authorized by state law to even be in the courtroom to take our child, and we're told, well, go ahead and take her to the hospital, which they did not do immediately, even though they were saying that she was in imminent danger of dying. And but we found this KRS, this Kentucky Revised Statute, where you can kind of see there, if you scroll up just a little bit more there, I want to show in the first paragraph, it'll say any child ordered to be transported by a committing or sentencing court shall be transported by the sheriff or the jailer of that county. Now that did not happen. Okay, I mean, she was just basically told, you know, oh, just go ahead and take her, and then they didn't even get to it till later that night. So you can kind of see there in paragraph 3 where I highlighted that no child should be transported to any residential treatment facility unless accompanied by an attendant of the same gender, unless that, you know, and then, so, you know, it had to be a jailer or someone, a government official to do that, and it had to be someone of the same gender. That did not happen. And then, so, you know, you can just see that it'll say there in paragraph 3, it says, you know, unless transported by a parent, grandparent, or adult brother or sister. Well, you know, none of those were involved in the transport of our daughter. So we just want to show that real quick. And then if you go on to the next slide, we'll show the penalty for that. In this
I just want to point out really quick that there are safeguards in place like this to keep what goes on from going on, and they just disregard them. As you can see now, like you mentioned, the elections, there's rules in place and laws in place to manage elections. They just disregard those. They disregard them. It doesn't matter to them. Same here. Anyway, I want to point that out. This is lawlessness, folks. This is systemic lawlessness. This is what we're seeing here. Let me go back to the documents. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So you go on to the next slide, Jim, and there is a penalty for violation of this. If you scroll in up there, it'll say any person who violates that provision in paragraph 2 they're guilty of a violation. All right. So the people who received our daughter should have been aware that she wasn't transported correctly when she was dropped off, apparently by the people who took possession of our 7 children. And, you know, so it wasn't just a failure in the court system to properly transport, but apparently it also was a failure by the people who received our daughter at the hospital to report this violation. So I just wanted to show that this is a penal thing. And yet, what is the purpose of any law that we have on the books if there's no prosecution or accountability for it? But we're just going to show yet another piece of it, like we've shown so many others, and some of the other things we'll be bringing forth in this broadcast. So if you just go on to the next slide, Jim, we're going to move into a couple documents. I just want to show that I was jailed, and this is a document that I received from my attorney upon my release. I was employed at a company, and but because I was put in jail, I needed a work release letter. So the attorney agreed to type this up, and you can see in there, it'll show that he is not charged with criminal activity. Okay, so there was no crime. I have evidence of it. I was never charged with it before they put me in jail. It was disguised like a detainment. And so, you know, here is evidence that there is no charge of a crime. We're just taking your kids, and now you have to do what we tell you, right? So go on to the next slide, and we'll move on from here. Now, I want to show a couple of things here, Jim. There's a couple of documents that we got out of the court file that are very suspicious as far as the nature of how they were prepared. You'll see here on this one, there's like 2 of these same type of document. And having served in service and worked with a lot of government documents, we're trained that there's one original and you can have other copies. And what we saw in the file was apparently 2 of the same type of form that were not overall actually similar in construction. And so this was like a forthwith order of release. And I want to just scroll down a little bit on that document if you can. There's a couple of things I want to point out for people to see. If you look at the location of the court stamp there, where it is in respect to tendered by, and the fact that it doesn't have an initial on it or anything, and then look at the date and look at the style of the number 4 there. And I just want people to kind of take a good look at that, because there's a second document on this, and you'll see there's no signature there by the assistant county attorney. So, you know, obviously it's not properly filled out. But if you go on to the next slide and scroll down to the same area, you will see that the court stamp is in a little bit of a different place, and the number 4 off to the right there is a different kind of 4, and you'll see just a big scribble at the bottom. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, I don't understand how there could be 2 documents like this, you would think that one would be original, one would be a copy, and they would both be the same. This appears to be two types of forms, and it raises the question, well, what's really going on? I mean, was this generated by different people? So I just want to kind of show that there's suspicious documentation there in the file.
You know what this brings up in my mind when I see this stuff? This is just you. How many times has this happened over and over? If they're lackadaisical about getting things like, I don't know, signatures of the attorney or the judge and that type of thing, you think that you're the only ones that's happened to? No. There's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of parents that have had that would never even know that this stuff is getting passed around without proper signatures, without proper procedure, the due process. It's so systemically corrupt, folks. This is just one case. Two parents had lost their children. It's across the country. The same type of thing goes on all across the country. I just kills me. This
so if we can go on to the next slide here, Jim.
Yeah.
There was another form that was in the file, and this is yet another style of another release from custody form. And, down there and about halfway down, you'll see charged with contempt for it, but it doesn't say what I'm charged with contempt for. But yet I just showed you a document from my attorney that I was not charged with any crime. So was there like an after the fact attempt to make it look like, that there was going to be a charge of something? And, again, we talked about this in the other videos about, how they got me into the court, and then they put me in jail disguised as a detainment, was actually there. You can kind of see there down on the right, it says next court date 4/13. I was being told in the jail that, oh yeah, you're here until your next court hearing. So it's all this contradictory information, like nobody really knew what was going on. Just complete lawlessness, like you said. So go on to the next slide. So Jim, over the last couple interviews that we've had, I have leaked out little pieces of evidence that show the collusion, the conspiracy, people who are involved inside and outside our government systems. And the question I have there at the top of this, as we dive into it, is, does any of this show evidence of a good faith action, or does it show conspiracy, fraud, and other criminal activity? And we want to know, where are our children in light of all of this, and why are they not with us? So if you scroll down, you will see that this evidence that we have will show that these are forged documents, which are Class C and D felonies under state law, and then even under federal law, a felony, the misprision of a felony is a federal crime. So if you know a felony and it doesn't get reported or it doesn't get acted upon, that would meet that offense under that statute. These documents that they now use as supporting documents to forward up the channel to get money from HHS would be false documentation, would be false paper. So that meets that offense under that Chapter 47, Section 1002. And then on down, the broader thing of the frauds and swindles by mail, and we've got evidence that, there were documents sent to us in the mail that show all of this, the fraud and false statements, and then the overall conspiracy to commit the offense or to defraud the United States of America, the American people, because we're the ones as the people who are paying money to fund these operations that these people are using to destroy our families and to take our children. So I wanted to show some of the other crimes there, and then I've shown a couple images up to this point. I think I showed maybe up to 10, and I showed a few where they were actually on the court documents. But I want to show a survey of a broader scope of images so people can see the correlation of the images, and that we believe we have concrete evidence that will show that these are, at least in many places, computer-generated documents that are tied in to scanning of other images that they kind of compile, and then they target families and they go after them to get their kids and then the federal money. So if you go on down to the next slide, I just want people to take in a couple of things, and I'm going to show the legend here that we've shown before. That we had a party invitation from 2005. So this goes back many years based on the evidence that we see of what they're using these images for, that there's an infiltrator that we know who this person is. The court documents, the documents from CHFS, other documents which I'll highlight, and then other evidence from this apparent infiltrator based on the evidence. So I just want people to see, because I think it's pretty clear and definitive, and it was through the extensive investigation that, and by the graces of God, that we were able to put all of this together. So I just want people to kind of take this in real quick. So you just go on to the next slide. And you will see here that across this first sheet, and I've got 7 of these that total up to over 100, and I said before I have over 1,000 of these images, okay, where you can see images that appear on CHFS documents, like there in number 1, it's from the 325 notification document A, we have a CPS inquiry, to an image on a court document, to a letter that we received from someone in the family, to court documents. That's what's in blue. And then the lighter blue there in number 8, that's actually on an envelope that ties into this letter that I think I showed in our previous interview, our 6th interview. This is number 7, I think. And then on down across the way, you can kind of see with this infiltrator and this letter that we got, that these images appear to be photocopied or photoshopped and then used back on court documents. So I just wanted to see that there's a correlation of the handwriting style or the images themselves that are used across different documents to include CPS, which should be, if they were operating lawfully, completely distinct. We should never be seeing similar images between a CPS document and a court document, yet this is what we discovered, and we've been able to tie it in to people on the outside who are participating in these activities, to the theft of our children and most likely others. That's why I said before, it's very important that when people see this, if they've been subject to these things in Jefferson County, Kentucky, that they look at their documents and see if there's any correlation, all right? Because they need to know that they could have been subject to this same type of an operation, and that's what it is. It's a seditious operation. So go on to the next one, Jim, so people can take this in, because like I said, we have many of these. You can kind of see up there on number 19. This was on the CHFS, one of the CHFS notification letters, and you get the same image almost as used on a court document. And number 20, and then on across from the jail is the letter that we got in 2013, and then people can kind of see the correlation. The one there on number 30 is on an envelope that was sent to us as if from the courthouse in November of 2016. And if you scroll on down on this page here, you will see down there in 31 and 32, that's actually a T. So it's a distinctive type of a T that's used from this letter onto a court, that appears on a court document, as well as like a party invitation that goes back to 2005. And then we just go on to the next slide and people can see the additional correlations. So these are just half of a survey of 7 cover pages that total, like I said, 1,000 images. And this includes signatures by, as if from a judge, that this really isn't a judge's signature on these documents. These appear to be signed by someone else, or at least fabricated or formatted to look that way. And down here in number 45 and 46, you will see a definitive correlation there. The one in 45 was sent to us as if from a social worker who apparently dropped off a note. Someone dropped off a note after our children were taken and wanted us to contact the social worker. And yet we discovered in keeping that document that same image appeared in 46 or something very close to it on a court document. So this also includes images on police documents that were used and put in the file, forged documents on state police forms. And so these are just 54 of over 100, and we'll bring those other ones forward. And I'll show these as we go forward, where they are actually on these documents. But I just wanted the people to see an overall survey of the collusion, and just the disgusting fraud that's going on.
So just to recap, what you're seeing here is we're seeing, it's your contention, and it looks like you have the evidence to prove it, that these documents are not all original signatures. Some of these are photocopied, forged. These are not, this is the process, basically, the paperwork, if you will, the administrative process, when they come and snatch 7 of your children and kidnap them, they haven't even, that's unlawful as it is, so they haven't even bothered to even do the paperwork correctly. So what you're seeing is, I think you're involved in some sort of a ring. I think you know this. There's some sort of an organized child kidnapping, trafficking, ring there going on. And it's not just there where they're at, folks. It's everywhere. It's all across this country. Okay, so let's go back to the documents here. Let me open this back up again. Okay, here we go. All right.
So we can just, and so, there's another one there in 47 and 48 that also came from a note, that came to us from apparently from a social worker. You had this almost the same image as on a court document. So you can just kind of see just another one, and then it's just it's very, very evident there.
It's undeniable. It's undeniable.
Yeah. So if you just go on to the next slide, Jim, I want to transition into what else is at stake here. The gross fraud and the criminality. To us, and as it should be for every American citizen, the violation of our constitutional rights and the protections, and we're being denied those at every turn along the way. And the couple of paragraphs I just want to highlight here is, at the top, our Constitution is our supreme law, and under Article 6, Section 2, the judges in every state are to be bound by it. And yet, our experience, and we know of the experiences of many others in the CPS and family court seditious operation, they are being denied their rights. And if we're being denied our rights, then we're being denied our freedom. We're being denied remedy and justice. And, we don't have any security in our homes or in our persons when we have this kind of a thing going on. And, a lot of people say, well, they have immunity. And we talked about this before, but right there in Chapter 21 of U.S. Code, section of Title 42, it says that it acknowledges under federal law that we have a right, and rights are not given to us by government, they're given to us by God. We acknowledge that in our declaration. So the right to have justice, and that all persons are subject to the jurisdiction, including judges, police, county prosecutors, hospital workers, whatever. Okay, there is no immunity. They can make all these laws making it look like there's immunity, but this is a right that comes to us from our Creator, and our government recognizes it. And so therefore, no other laws can be actually valid that deny us this basic right to have justice and to have civil remedy for suit, and yet they're not letting it happen. So if we go on to the 14th Amendment, an additional deprivation of rights under the color of law, Jim, I just want to highlight that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Okay, nor to deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So as an additional violation of equal protection, that, if other people can sue for various things, why do we, who have our children kidnapped under the color of law, are we told that, we don't have protection to be able to follow 42 U.S. Code, Chapter 21, Section 1981? It's just ridiculous that, these things are going on and no one in our system is acting on our behalf. So you can kind of see the penal code, and this is where if they don't enforce this, and they're not, and this is where every American needs to be even more outraged, is because we have an added security that if someone attempts to deprive us of our rights, okay, that is a crime, and they need to be prosecuted and jailed, to preserve our liberty. And where this is not happening, well, they're going to continue to work to enslave, to terrorize us under tyranny. That's what this is. So there's two statutes there, 241 and 242. We can show that there isn't just law deprivation, but in 241 that there was a conspiracy to deprive us of our rights, of the securities of our children and our family unit. So if you go on to the next slide, we'll kind of wrap this part of it up on the big picture. But it says that if such acts include kidnapping, they shall be fined or imprisoned for any term of years or for life. So this is a very serious crime. And so we show all the evidence of this, where it involves the deprivation of your rights with kidnapping, because that's what's going on. And they're not doing anything about it, which raises the question, well, why not? And what are we the people going to do about it? Because, hey, if we've got a form of government that's acting destructively to kidnap and take away our children with no justice or remedy under a law, then what have we allowed to happen in our system? I mean, that's just a question for people to think seriously about, because this isn't just something that's happened to Terry and me and a few others that you courageously broadcast, but this has the potential to affect even those who it has not happened yet. So every American, even if you're sitting there watching this and you think, oh, that would never happen to me. Well, we were sitting in that chair one day saying, oh, I'd like to see them try that, and it did happen. Okay, and then here we sit 4.5 years later. Our children are still missing. We have our life and livelihood are at risk every day. But thanks be to God, we've been brought to this moment of disclosure. So, Jim, I'd like to just continue on to the next slide, and I want to show you that an additional deprivation of rights. This was a court document that we got because I want to fast forward a little bit, and we can backtrack as you know, in the coming weeks if we can. But we requested a trial by jury, and under the state of Kentucky Constitution, it says that right should be is inviolate. And but I want to show that when we requested a trial by jury on August 3rd of 2016, we got a document saying request for trial by jury denied. And for us, I was just, you got to be kidding me. You know, we knew that the state law says that the Constitution says that we could have a trial by jury, and we were told, oh, that had been amended. Well, we later found out in an email to the acting Speaker of the House of Representatives that was not true, that had not been amended. So how they operate on this, though, if you go on to the next slide, is under the KRS. There's a KRS under the family court 610070, and you'll see it says there in paragraph 1 that shall be dealt with by the court without a jury. All right. Now, some people would look at that and say, "Oh, well, see, they're just following state law." Well, no, our Constitution in the state of Kentucky says that we had that right to a jury trial was to be inviolate, and it includes civil and criminal proceedings, and we were in an alleged civil process, even though it was a pseudo or not really a legitimate one. You can see there in paragraph 3, I'm going to touch upon this real quick, the general public shall be excluded. So these are closed courts. There's no oversight by the public. You know, they only allow in whoever they want to allow in, whether it's lawful or not, as much as it meets their little objective. And so you just go ahead and scroll down, Jim, and at the bottom I got a couple of the things in the Constitution there that I want people to see that I typed in at the bottom of this document. That the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Kentucky says that all courts shall be open, right? And it also says that all laws contrary to this Constitution shall be void. So this KRS 61070 under the Kentucky Constitution is a void law because it prohibits access of the public into the court system, and yet they're operating on void law. And, you know, to deprive us of not just oversight by the public, but also a trial by jury. And I'm going to show that here in a minute if you go on to the next slide. Okay, so as I said, we did request a trial by jury, and there's the Kentucky Section 7, the statute under the Constitution that remains unviolate, and there have been no modifications as we identified from the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And you can kind of see there in Section 248, if you scroll down a little bit, in civil and misdemeanor cases, it says that here's how a jury will look. So it clearly shows under Section 248 of the Kentucky Constitution that, yeah, there are jury trials and civil proceedings, all right? So scroll on down. So there's a KRS, and these are kind of contradictory that, you know, for a civil proceeding, you can kind of see that, oh yeah, you can have a jury trial. And then it says in paragraph 2, no right to a jury trial in civil actions if the amount in controversy does not exceed $250. Well, our children are definitely more valuable than $250, and you know, so we do have a right to jury trial under the supreme law. And you know, so let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit further. And then I think we can go on to the next slide, and I'll show you another key piece of this. So in Note 4, I just want to touch upon, people can read for themselves what else is in here, but I'm not going to read everything. But deprivations of a jury trial are an indicator of tyrannical government. Our founding fathers and mothers, and there were many of them, many of the mothers, good women, when they crafted our declaration, they identified that depriving someone of a jury trial is a tyrannical act of a tyrant government. And that's one of the grievances they listed in the Declaration of Independence. So this is what's happening to families. It happened to us. We have the proof. And so denying us a trial by jury denies us of government by the people. And it also rises to even a federal issue, because in the 6th and 7th Amendment, you just keep scrolling up, you will see that we have a right to a trial by jury in criminal and in civil proceedings. So Not only is it a state crime, but it's a federal crime. It's a federal deprivation of right. So go ahead and scroll up a little bit more. Okay, so I just kind of talk about there, that this is not lawful, and that KRS 610070 is a void law that they're operating under. So go on to the next slide. And this is where I will show again that, all laws to the contrary of the Constitution are declared void under the authority of the state constitution. And then the fact that they're enforcing a void law to abridge our privileges is just an additional travesty under the 14th Amendment. So go on to the next slide. Now, Jim, when we were going through this process, and this moves into a different element of it, and it's kind of important because we have identified that under federal law, under the FO, there is a good provision, if you want to consider it that, even though the entire act is just abominable in everything that it does to American families. But they are required to identify all adult children, all adult relatives of the removal of a child so that they can participate in the prospective care. And we identified, this is one of the first ones we identified from April of 2017. You see out of 8,188 children who were in out-of-home care, that when you look at about the fourth line down, it'll say placed in relative placement, only 311 were placed with relatives. So how does that happen? If you got a bunch of good parents and grandparents or aunts and uncles or brothers or sisters, how is it that we can only come up with 311 out of 8,188 that are placed with relatives? So if you go on down, scroll down a little bit more here at the bottom, I want to show the people how much money is involved per child. There at the bottom, every cost per child for every month in foster care, $53,596.63. You add that up against that number of children, year by year or month by month, that adds up to a lot of money that is being circulated around. And we know that the big money goes out to children who are not placed with relatives, and how easy is it for them to be trafficked or to be used for medical experimentation and in other ways without oversight of a truly caring relative.
Hold on a minute. That's not per month. Wait a minute. That's not per month. 53,000 per month. That is the total. Is that the total cost throughout the whole course of the child's stay in foster care? Is that what that is?
Yeah, I think when it says the average of months, but
that's the average of the months.
So that was something that those documents, and we have quite a few of those, that's actually statistics that the state of Kentucky puts out, where they will show the relative, you could see there the relative placement numbers, and that was just something that we were really astounded by, because at the time, Kentucky, during that time, I think Kentucky was rating last in the country for relative placements. And so when you think about all the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the adult siblings, that children could be placed with, why are all these children being placed with non-family?
Yeah, and you'll see more of this in the successive documents, Jim, because there's additional documents that people will be able to see the disparity. You scroll on to the next one. This is in Jefferson County. Now, there's a breakout in regions in the state, and so there's like another 9 or 10 documents for various regions. But in Jefferson County, you will look at the same amount of numbers at the top there. If you go back up to the top, that in that county alone, in this region, out of 971 children who were removed, only 8 in October of 2017 were placed with a relative.
And yeah,
that's
so,
and we're not sure if that included ours or not at the time, because we don't know how they're counting our own, because one of the people that they gave them to really isn't a relative. She's
that's way below 1%. Was that 0.8%? Is that what that is? 0.8?
Yes.
I mean, come on. And that is one of the things. Isn't that one of the things they're supposed to do first? Is look for, isn't that supposed to be one of their first courses of action? Not the 0.8, not the 0.8 course of action.
And that's Louisville, Kentucky. That's Louisville, with the whole issue with the Louisville Metro Police Department and Demaya White, that who was taken in Louisville, who died in foster care. So yes, that's Louisville, Kentucky. And
yeah, so if you go on to the next slide, Jim, I want to show that this isn't just what's happening in Kentucky. Now here is a picture graph that shows, and now in red, that's the if you look there, it'll show foster family home in red, non-relative. So that's the, oh, we need more foster parents, right? That's a non-relative placement of all children taken. And you can kind of see there, the relative is the green or the olive green there on the left. So you can see this huge disparity.
Wow.
Okay. So go on to the next slide, because I want people to see that this is happening in other states too. Now this graph kind of shows the distinction just in a graph form, and I think that's in Kentucky too. Like the separation of the green at the top versus at the bottom where the actual it's relative placement in the red there.
That's Virginia. That was another state.
Okay, this is Virginia.
That was one of the bad ones.
So this is another one. If you look at the bottom there, Jim, I want to show the people where they can see a long running line. If you go up a little bit more, this goes back years, and this was taken from a website, a Kids Count data site. You can kind of see their foster family home non-relative. You can see that it's just grossly disproportionate of the number of kids taken and who are actually placed with relatives. You would think it would be the opposite of that, but oh no, because of the generation of the big money and what they're doing with children, and you know, many people already talked about it, but here's the statistical proof of showing this. So this is in Virginia up through 2015. If you go on to the next slide, I think we've got another couple states.
We're just coming down to about 2 minutes left here before we got to run out towards the end. Want me to just keep going?
Yeah, we can show maybe one or two more, and then we'll just close it out. I don't know what state this is. Oh, that's another one, Virginia. We can just scroll through that one real quick, and then just go on to the next one because I want to show a different slide. So if you would just go on a couple more slides in, Jim, I want people to just look at the states overall. If you would just kind of scroll through these.
Yeah, that's South Carolina. This is South Carolina.
Yeah, South Carolina. So if you would just go forward a little bit more real quick.
Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama, same thing.
This is Kentucky. Of course, we had that one on there already. Kentucky.
Okay. So this was a memo that we made, and this will show the percentages in the states of those children who are with family versus not with family.
Wow.
You can see now. I wrote over there on the right because I had the numbers configured. I made a typographical error there, but the accurate one is where I wrote it in there on the right. But you kind of see it doesn't affect the percentages. The percentages are correct of the number of children who are not with family. And you can see the top 7 there. And then you can go on to the next slide and see the rest of the states. And so you would think that with the number of relatives that any child would normally have, how is it that we see this kind of disgusting, you know, thing going on where children are just being ripped away from what are loving homes in place with complete strangers? And we all know it is in respect to the money, most likely even the trafficking and who knows what else. But where there's no loving oversight by really caring family members, they're just placed with complete strangers who are just interested in getting paid money. Well, this is what's happening, and here's the statistical evidence from that Kids Count data site, and it goes on for many years. And so you can see there at the bottom that, you know, the state will exercise due diligence to provide notice to the following relatives. Okay, you go on to the next slide, and I talked about this, but all adult relatives are to be notified. Okay, so obviously this did not happen in our case, and it's not happening in the cases of many other American parents. They're not even following the law.
No, indeed. That sums it up in a nutshell. They are not following the law, and they haven't for, I don't know, for 2 decades, 2 decades perhaps. And millions of children's lives have been affected and families have been affected by this, folks, many millions. Mark and Terri Steman, we so much appreciate you coming on. Let us know where people can find out more about you. Sorry we had the technical difficulties. We would have got through these slides, but I got another show coming up, actually.
Thank you, Jim.
Sure. Where can people find out more about you if you want to give out websites, Twitter pages, Twitter handles, Facebook pages, that type of thing? Over to you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Jim. People can get in touch with us through email at letourchildrengo@protonmail.com. They can reach out to us at givesendgo.com/saving-our-family. We have a thing set up there. I think it has a prayer network type thing. I'm not sure. We're just getting we're not too sure how that one works yet, but they can reach us definitely through email, letourchildrengo@protonmail.com. Our website, letourchildrengo.org, should be functional hopefully soon, and they can send me a direct message on Twitter at No Longer Ignored is one of the best ways to reach me, and as well as email. And thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to continue to share with your audience.
Thank you, Jim.
Welcome. Of course, I like you got the new background going and everything. Like, looks good. That's guys good. I hope you guys get on a lot of shows. I really do. We so much appreciate you joining us. We'll have you back on again real soon. Okay.
See you soon, Jim.
Thanks so much. God bless. Okay, folks, there goes Mark and Terri Steman, victims of the system. I suggest that you go ahead and look at their other videos that I've done with them here on the program. It's tragic. What happened to them. It's just absolutely tragic. There's no other way to put it. We just out of time here. I got another show coming up at 9:15 on the Montana Gazette Radio if you want to check that out. So much appreciate you looking in. Support us at northwestlibertynews.com, criticaldisclosure.com, and I haven't even talked about a sponsor today, but support our sponsor, scroll along the bottom of the screen. Appreciate you looking in. Until next time, James White for Critical Disclosure Radio saying bye now.